Joining us now, NBC News' Shaquille Brewster, who is on the ground in the state of Wisconsin. Also with me here in the studio is NPR White House correspondent Deepa Shivram and New York Times chief White House correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Peter Baker. Shaq, as always, you are out there with the voters. So what, if any, part of these things that we just talked about is resonating with them?
Well, among the supporters, among the Democrats who braved the long lines here in Wisconsin, who came out, you see some of the crowd behind me. Look, they are very happy. They say they're enthusiastic. They're charged in a way that they weren't, say, 2.5 weeks ago. And when they look at this pick specifically, a lot of them are trusting the vice president in her decision here. Many of them had their favorites as they watch this process play out, but many of them say they believe that she made the right decision. And what you get a sense of is that with Governor Walz's large biography, you get a sense that voters are kind of plucking out their favorite part of it as they learn a little bit more about him. Just listen to the sense of the conversations I've had with folks here in Wisconsin.
I think it was a very good pick. He seems to be very educated, knowledgeable, and he's for kids, which is great. Not too many politicians are.
We're super stoked about Kamala and Walz. We were super excited. We're from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And
I'm definitely optimistic again and re-energized. It was looking grim there for a second, but I feel like my hope has been re-inspired.
Veterans are extremely important here, and they've got to realize if they want to protect that democracy, protect the Constitution, then we know who the candidate is, and that's Kamala Harris.
Now, what you're also seeing is a race to define Governor Walz and a race to really introduce him. And that's what's going on right now with these stops. We saw yesterday and today in Michigan, or later today, Michigan, right now, Wisconsin. You're getting a sense that they're really trying to do what they can to introduce this candidate, as you have Republicans, even in the state, saying that they also like this pick because it makes the Democratic ticket more liberal. They believe that, especially here in Wisconsin, which is a bordering, a neighboring state to Minnesota, people who are familiar with Walz, people who are Republicans who are familiar with him, they don't like what they see. And that's what you have local Republicans saying, that they are able to paint him in a more liberal way. Instead of talking about him as a bipartisan lawmaker, they talk about some of the laws that he passed as governor, that he signed as governor. So you really get the race on both sides to define this new ticket. Even as Democrats, you talk to them, you see the signs, you see the shirts, they are enthusiastic about their new ticket.
That's really important work that you're doing there, Shaq, watching how voters are metabolizing this, and with a great soundtrack, I might add. Deepa, you have covered Harris for years when you and I were on the campaign trail back in 2020. We've since learned how much of Kamala Harris's final decision on Tim Walz came down to chemistry. But it strikes me that one element of that chemistry is ambition, something that was leveraged unsuccessfully against Harris back in 2020 when she was in the running to be Biden's VP. So what role did that word play here, and how did it work in Walz's favor?
Yeah, I mean, that's such an interesting point, Allie, and we talked about this so much 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when Kamala Harris herself was going through this Veep stakes process. That question of, well, she might want to be president one day was a negative on her side, and she really had to prove to Biden's team, to Joe Biden, that she was willing to be a loyal number two. And having done that for the last 4 years as vice president, that was something that was very much a part of her thought process in picking her number two, right? Is this person going to be just waiting for the chance to take this number one spot, or are they going to get in line with the agenda that I'm trying to pass and think about and convince voters to get on board with? And so that was definitely an element that Tim Walz came in and said that, I'm going to be vice president. I'm ready to sign up to be your number two, and really worked.
But it also strikes me, and I had people saying this to me in the very early stages of this process. It's been like a week and a half, but the very early stages of this process a week and a half ago, the idea that it wasn't just being a vice president, it wasn't just being second, it was being second to a Black and Asian woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a piece of this too.
There is an element to that, right, of the racial dynamics of this, the gender dynamics of this, because at the same time, this is not something Kamala Harris herself can get on stage and say, vote for me, I'm the first, I'm a Black woman, I'm an Asian woman, I'm a woman, and expect voters to, take that message and run with it. This is not something she's making the race about. It's about policy. It's about beating Trump for her. She's really hammering home that message. And so Tim Walz has to be willing to not dim her shine and her light in that role. And that's something we're kind of watching for this week.
Yeah, and validators are so important for women candidates. I mean, we know this. It's in all the research. Peter, I want to come to you on the dynamic shift that we've seen from just a few weeks ago. You say the happy warrior ending of the Harris-Walz rally is something we haven't seen in American politics for a while. But you also say that plenty of happy warriors have also lost. So how does joy translate to votes here?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Of course, Hubert Humphrey, the most famous happy warrior of modern times, perhaps fell short of, obviously, in 1968. But you need, I think, for a party that felt kind of depressed, kind of down, kind of certainly pessimistic for the last year and a half, to see the kind of energy right there on your screen in Wisconsin, to see it last night in Philadelphia. It's a very different dynamic than just a few weeks ago. People in the Democratic Party, they liked Joe Biden. They respected him, in many cases admired him, thought he did a good job. But that they weren't excited about him as their candidate going forward. Kamala Harris can take the best parts of the Biden record. She has to defend, obviously, the entire record. But then she can make the argument about generational change, and she can make the argument about not going backwards in a way that Biden obviously couldn't. And you see in the electricity in these crowds a sense of hope and optimism that Democrats haven't really felt now, I think, for quite a while.
Certainly, it's been a head-spinning series of weeks, and I've heard that idea of renewed joy from most of my Democratic sources. But, Peter, I'm struck by something that your colleague Lisa Lara wrote about how Republicans aren't going to let Walz's casual, everyman style pass for moderate politics. She writes in part, quote, large swaths of white rural voters are unlikely to break their years-long support of former President Donald Trump just because Mr. Walz is on the ticket. But Democrats hope Mr. Walz can curb some of those expected losses, expand where they can compete, and reassure more moderate Democrats who may have concerns about Ms. Harris. How realistic is that hope for Harris? And let's be clear, it's not just political assurance that Walz brings here, it's identity assurance, too, as a white man on the ticket. Right, Peter?
That's right. It's people want to see people that they feel comfortable with, right, who speak to their experiences, right? That's why a lot of people are excited by Kamala Harris, because a lot of younger people feel like she speaks to their experiences in a way that Joe Biden didn't. Conversely, of course, a lot of white male working class voters in some of these, Midwest and other critical battleground states may not feel that she speaks to them in the same way that they hope that Tim Walz will speak to them. Now, that is identity. That is about, cultural connection more than it is about ideology. But obviously, the Trump people will try to paint him as sort of out of the mainstream, and that's the really interesting question. Now, Tim Walz is not going to bring over Trump voters. People who are committed to Trump are committed to Trump. What they're trying to do is get the Biden voters from 2020 who've defected, who've left him, who grew disappointed in him, to come back to the Democratic fold, particularly independents and independent-minded Democrats. And that's what they hope Tim Walz can help them do.
I think that's a crucial piece of this. But at the end of the day, Deepa, vice presidents aren't the thing that move mountains or move metrics of votes. I do think, though, that there is something to this politics of joy, though. I mean, when you've been out there, and you have, out on the campaign trail here, politics of joy isn't new, as you were reminding me with Kamala Harris, but it feels fresh and new now.
It feels fresh and new now. It feels like voters are ready for that message. In 2019, when Kamala Harris was running for president, there was this element she was trying to bring of being a joyful warrior. They even had bumper stickers of her face next to that phrase, joyful warrior. But this time around, that message, especially with Tim Walz next to her on the stage, Democrats for years now, ever since Trump was running for president, have been saying that, this is a dangerous Republican Party, that they're passing dangerous ideas. And voters at this point I've been talking to are saying, we're ready for enthusiasm. We're ready for excitement. And that's kind of what you're seeing play out at these rallies.
And we're going to see if that continues to play out as people actually start trying to turn these into tangible, hard votes. Deepa, I appreciate you joining me in studio. Shaq Brewster out on the campaign trail. Peter Baker, as ever, with the historical analysis that you bring to us. Thank you all so much.